Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisance to all good Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we continue with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, verses 39 and 40, chapters entitled The Punishment and Reward of Kali, coming pretty close till the end of the chapter, discussing and sharing the punishment and reward of Kali. And without further delay, we will hear from His Grace Dronacharya Prabhu from ISKCON Philadelphia. We're happy to have him with us. We only hear him once a month, so it's always nectar when he joins us once a month, and we look forward to his classes. And it's all yours, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Harrisburg family. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Patitanam Pavanevyo, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Hope you're all having a good Monday morning so far. Mother Anasuya, tell me what I should do here. Should I chant Jai Radha Madhava or should we go right into the verse?
Just go right into the verse. Just say the pranams and go straight into the verse. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest in this age, one should first offer one's respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the supermost human being, and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto the Goddess of Learning, Mother Saraswati, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome into the heart is almost completely destroyed, and devotional service is established within one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Continuing Canto 1, Chapter 17, text 39 and 40. We're going to find another place where Kali resides. So previously, there were the 4 sinful activities, and this is where Kali is situated. But in the because things were so auspicious and the environment was perfectly set during the time of Maharaj Parikshit, Kali had even though he was given permission to reside in these sinful places, there was really not a lot of sin going on at that time. So he said, you're going to have to give me another place. So today we will find out where that place is. Also coming back last night from the mantra retreat in New Vrindavan. So we got back a little bit late.
How was it?
That was fabulous. It was really nice, wonderful kirtans and just nice association. I miss the association of the Harrisburg Yatra.
Last year we went, but this next year I'm going to push my men to make it happen.
Yeah. Last year, I think everybody was even talking about this. That Harrisburg had the most people last year.
There was none.
So Philadelphia had a little bit more this year. So we still we say we're Pennsylvania, there are a
That was good.
couple people from Pittsburgh as well. So
Oh, good.
we had a Pennsylvania contingency there. But it's really fabulous. But here we are. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Punyascha yachamananaya jata rupam adat prabhu tato rintam madan kamam rajo vairam cha panchamam punyascha yachamanaya jata rupam adat prabhu tato rintam madam kamam rajo vairam cha panchamam punyascha yachamanaya jata rupam adat prabhu tato rintam madam kamam rajo vairam cha panchamam. Would any of the devotees like to chant?
Unascha yachamanaya jata rupam adat prabhu tato nitam madam kamam rajuvairam chapanchamam.
Punascha yachamanaya jata rupam adat prabhu tato nrittam madam kamam rajo vairam cha panchamam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Punascha yachamanaya jata rupam adat prabhu tato anratam madam kamam rajo vairam cha panchamam.
Punascha yachamanaya chata rupa matat prabhu tato nrittam madam kamam rajo vairam cha panchamam. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll do the synonyms. Puna, again. Cha, also. Yachchamanaya, to the beggar. Jatarupam, gold. Adat, gave away. Prabhu, the king. Ata, whereby. Anritam, falsehood. Madam, intoxication. Kamam, lust. Raja, on account of a passionate mood. Vairam, enmity. Cha, also. Panchamam, the fifth one. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, H.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The personality of Kali asked for something more, and because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Purport. Although Maharaj Parikshit gave Kali permission to live in 4 places, it was very difficult for him to find the places, because during the reign of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no such places. Therefore, Kali asked the king to give him something practical, which could be utilized for his nefarious purposes. Maharaj Parikshit thus gave him permission to live in a place where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there is all the above mentioned 4 things. And over and above there is enmity also. So the personality of Kali became gold standardized. According to the Srimad Bhagavatam, gold encourages falsity, intoxication, prostitution, envy, and enmity. Even a gold standard exchange and currency is bad. The gold standard currency is based on falsehood because the currency is not on par with the reserved gold. The basic principle is falsity because currency notes are issued in value beyond that of the actual reserved gold. This artificial inflation of currency by the authorities encourages prostitution of the state economy. The price of commodities becomes artificially inflated because of bad money or artificial currency notes. Bad money drives away good money. Instead of paper currency, actual gold coins should be used for exchange, and this will stop prostitution of gold. Gold ornaments for women may be allowed by control, not by quality, but by quantity. This will discourage lust, envy, and enmity. When there's actual gold, currency in the form of coins, the influence of gold in producing falsity, prostitution, etc., will automatically cease. There will be no need for any anti-corruption ministry for another term of prostitution and falsity of purpose. Should we go to the next verse is tied into this one? Amuni panchashtanani hi adharma prabhavakali uttarayena datani nyavashatan nideshakrit. Translation: the personality of Kali, by the direction of Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. Purport: thus the age of Kali began with gold standardization, and therefore falsity, intoxication, animal slaughter, and prostitution are rampant all over the world. And the saner section is eager to drive out corruption. The counteracting process is suggested above, and everyone can take advantage of this situation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Agena Timbarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umliyatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Swapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I spent the weekend with Bhakti Marg Swami, so anytime he's very theatrical when he speaks. So he got us to, like, every time we chant the Maha Mantra or Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya or Om Agyanata Varandasha, to start gesturing with our hands what we're actually doing. So I found myself almost doing that right now. Very beautiful. Maharaj is very creative. So the verse here, once again, the personality of Kali asked for something more. And because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. When I first read this, I thought about the goddess Lakshmi, because as I remember when I was first taught that, devotees called wealth, money, valuables, Lakshmi. Because when I first heard that term, I said, why did they just say money? They say, how much Lakshmi do you have? You've probably heard this term. And I said, why don't they just say money? And they say, because money indicates something, you already have a notion of money. Money is for your enjoyment. But actually all wealth comes from the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. And Lakshmi is meant for the pleasure of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. So therefore, by identifying your valuables, your money as Lakshmi, you're making a direct connection that actually this is meant for the pleasure of Krishna and not for your own enjoyment. So also in this verse, we see that the gold, Jagat Rupam. So also this gold, everything is coming from the Supreme Lord, and everything is meant for the Lord's pleasure. And we should see things from that perspective, that if it is not used in the Lord's pleasure, we're trying to disconnect Krishna's energy, which is Lakshmi, with Krishna directly. And as a result, that activity becomes sinful. Sin is a result of breaking our connection with the Supreme Lord, using something for our own personal gratification. So this gold, Srila Prabhupada starts off in the purport here. He says, so in this material world, when we disassociate our wealth from Krishna, that actually becomes the place where sinful activities take place. It says Maharaj Parikshit thus gave permission for Kali to live in the place where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there are all the above mentioned four things, which are illicit sex, and Srila Prabhupada calls out prostitution here, falsity, or gambling, intoxication, and also meat eating. There's gold represents, in this case, it represents wealth. And if one tries to further advance his material position or condition and enjoyment in this world by a display of his wealth, these are the activities that they will become involved in. This is what happens when we disconnect our, the energy of the Lord from the Lord directly. Of course, wealth can be used in many wonderful ways. Krishna describes this, Srila Prabhupada describes this concept of Krishna karma, when one uses all of one's wealth in the service of the Lord, by building temples, by furthering the Krishna consciousness movement, by serving the devotees, etc. One actually purifies one's existence. But when one sees one's wealth as an opportunity to further enjoy this material world, they'll fall deeper down into the clutches and engagement of this material world. So in that respect, sometimes being wealthy is not the goal of the devotee. In some religious movements, becoming wealthy is a sign of God's blessing upon you. And that if you're not wealthy, that you have not pleased God. We should understand that these are really karmakundic concepts, even though they're prominent in, not just Vedic traditions, but also, Christianity, Judaism, some of the Western-born religions, where the principle, and although it is also there in the Vedic traditions as well, we see things that become very karmakundic, where we ask God to give us this wealth and say dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So you perform religious activities so that you can get artha. Artha is money or wealth. What do you want that wealth for? For kama, for enjoyment. And then after the long process of enjoying that kama, life comes to an end. What do you want? You want moksha. You want freedom from it all. You want deliverance from this material world. Srimad Bhagavatam specifically says that this kaitava dharma, this process of materially motivated religion, is rejected, and how to perform pure devotional service, and to reawaken, to enliven, to transform the heart, is the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam, by giving us Krishna directly, in his various incarnations and his various pure devotees. So I found it very, very interesting here. I had heard Srila Prabhupada talk about this before, but I never really had a chance to think about it. I just kind of passed it off. And this is this concept where, Srila Prabhupada would talk about paper currency and its kind of false value. And this is the world, at least I grew up in. Everybody, you consider that you have money if you have these paper dollars. And it may say 1 on it, it may say 20 on it, it may say 5 on it, it may say 100 on it. And based on the number it says on it is the value that you think that you have. And the weight of that paper is exactly the same. The only difference is there's a print on that paper that says 100, 5, 20, but the actual value of that paper is how much. I mean, I can pull a piece of paper. Here's a paper right here, that weighs just as much. It's just an envelope, an empty envelope. But we say, but if this paper looked like, had a stamp on it and said $100, they would say, okay, you got $100 and you can buy all these things. So Srila Prabhupada is exposing that this is based on a false economy. So when he says gold standard, I actually had to look up these terms last night when I got home, because I was thinking, I'm not an economist. I maybe took some general economic classes, micro and macroeconomics in school, but it wasn't my field, so I never really understood it, and I still may not understand it. But I'll explain a little, and if anybody wants to chime in, I invite you to do so. But my understanding here is that gold actually has a weight to it, and the more it weighs is the more value it has, because the more quantity you have. As a substitution for actually having a mass or a volume of this precious metal, you substitute it. Instead of passing that out to people, you you give out these notes or paper that would indicate that you have, so this thing that says 100 on it, this piece of paper that says 100, we're going to keep the metal in a reserve, a bank where we control, a government controls. But if you ever want it, you come to me and I'll exchange it with that weight of gold. Of course, that never really happens because we all deal, we go to the bank, we have trust, we put in the bank, I want to give you this $1,000. The bank says, okay, I'm going to put in an account and you have this $1,000 there. If you want it, you pull it back. And this whole, we don't actually see that actual wealth. We don't actually have it in our hands. We actually never really experience it. But we exchange, cars, we exchange, houses, we pay for college tuition, we pay for, groceries, our employer gives us these notes, but we never actually ever experience or get to actually see the value of what that 100 or 5 or 20 or all our savings actually adds up to. And this goes on over and over and over again. If the economy will ever, and I should say when, eventually it would fail, and those pieces of paper have no value anymore. And you think, well, wait, I have $100,000 sitting in the bank. I saved up my whole life. And they say, well, that pieces of paper don't mean anything anymore. You basically have nothing. So that's one point there. And then there's the point where the inflation component of it, where they start to inflate the value of the piece of paper beyond the actual quantity that actually exists of the precious metal. So why does this create a disturbance, and why is Srila Prabhupada bringing this in to this purport about how to be Krishna conscious? Because the system is created to develop a false standard of living, to generate the desire for consumerism within the individual, which is none different than another way of saying how to manipulate our minds to increase our sense gratification. That is the reason, for this. So that we can purchase more things. And while purchasing more things, we become further in debt. And we become entangled in this network of desires, thinking that these items that we buy are actually going to make us satisfied. Specifically in America, this has run rampant. We've now moved out of the realm of paper. Now it's to the point where paper is very, very rarely even exchanged. Now almost everything is based upon credit, right? So you have banks now lending you money. They say, okay, I understand you don't have, and yes, there's certain items that you have to buy that are maybe beyond your component, and then you pay back, your house, your car, maybe even, education, maybe extreme medical bills, etc., like that. But it's got to the point where all your basic living expenses, they're saying, don't worry about it. You just flash your card in front of the screen and we're going to charge you, and you just pay us back later, a small amount a month. So everything is now based upon this principle of credit. And who's actually now in control? Well, it's the banks, the credit card companies. And now they basically own, they're owning your desires, because they're basically telling you there's really no limit. Even if you reach your credit card limit, you can go to the bank and get another one. you know, and they'll get another one, and they'll get another one. And yeah, at some point it'll stop, but it's basically telling you that you don't have to be a responsible individual. You can allow your senses to basically run wild. Why is this not good? Because it allows us to engage in activities that are not necessary for self-realization. It builds the platform of society that acquiring materials that we think that will make us happy and we think will satisfy us is the purpose of life. It takes us away from the real value of life, which is self-realization, Krishna consciousness. I remember I once heard from this is a long time ago, Dronacharya Maharaj. He was giving advice to a group of men, and we were all kind of young, and we were going into we were all getting ready to get married and move into kind of moving in that phase of life. And he said the secret to success is not to acquire more than you can afford. He says, in the ashram you're moving into, he says, the key is to not acquire more than you can afford. And if you live that way, you will live simply, but you will live happily. And if you can control your desire to overspend and live that way, he says, you will find your ability to practice Krishna consciousness, very smooth. He said, however, if you don't, you will find yourself kind of in the clutches, because now you're going to feel I have to keep working more. And then the more you work, you think the more money I have, then the more I can spend. And then he says it's a vicious cycle, and it's set up in this way so that to basically pull you away. He said, so control that urge. If you're able to control that urge as a householder, you'll find your pathway to live in Krishna consciousness, very smooth. As devotees, compared to the rest of the general society, our consumption is probably much less. I think for the most part we are, just because our philosophy, and at least we have some, consciousness about this. But we also have to be careful that we don't get dragged into the illusion of this material world. Because our purpose is different, our goal is different, and we always have to remind ourselves of that. We live for the pleasure of the spiritual master, for the pleasure of Krishna, to execute the orders of the spiritual master and execute the orders of Lord Krishna, to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, to be engaged in the activities of Krishna consciousness. And when we find ourselves doing these things, we find ourselves less and less engaged in the material energy. And although these things, there may be items that are needed to be bought, acquired, and used in the service of Krishna, this is the proper way to plan out and utilize, any type of wealth that we may have, and thus we'd be reconnecting Lakshmi with Lord Vishnu, and that will bring all auspiciousness within our lives. So I wanted to get some devotees' feedback on this idea, because it's something that we may all really struggle with, and it's all understandable because we live in this modern culture. And also, if there's any other understanding of this idea of the gold standard and how it's being implied in this verse, you can share that as well.
Thank you so much, Dronacharya. Actually, like you, I took a couple of economics class, and that was enough to burn my head. So I don't know much about it. I just did it to pass the class pretty much. But I really like the point, Drona, that you said, sometimes we hear something so many times and it doesn't hit us until we hear it again and again and again. But I really like the point that you said that money is Lakshmi Devi, and it's used for the pleasure of Krishna. And I really liked how you connected that, because if we really look at money in the form of Lakshmi Devi, even as devotees, because sometimes, like you said, and the concept you spoke about, the paper, it was like, wow, amazing. Even like when we think about, as devotees, practicing devotees, when we look at money and we think, oh, I want to get this extra thing, but is it for the pleasure of the Lord? Is it in service to the Lord? And I was really thinking, wow, that's a really powerful way to look at it, that the money that we have is Lakshmi Devi, and actually Lakshmi Devi is actually, to please the Lord. And it really changes the consciousness, I feel, to make us think twice before purchasing too much. Being a hoard, as they say,
Yeah.
I mean, that's deep. That's really deep, because sometimes we go to this needs versus wants. And I said, wow, now, and even if it's a need, but how will it be used in Krishna's service? Yes, even if you have a house, okay, will the house be used in Krishna's service? Well, will this be used in Krishna's service? As opposed to thinking, I just want it because the Joneses have it, kind of a thing. So I was really appreciating how just thinking that way can really change our consciousness of money. So really, that was a strong takeaway from me. Really strong takeaway.
Nice realization. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to open up to devotees if any questions, any comments. And as Dronacharya said, those of us who may have, who may have a stronger understanding of this whole gold value currency, please do chime in, unmute yourself and chime in. Yes, Parikshit, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, with that, accept humble obeisances, all glory to the Prabhupada. I just want to bring attention to all of us to part of the purport Srila Prabhupada mentioned, and with that, maybe have some comment from you about it. It's a short sentence. It says, bad money drives away good money. Bad money drives away good money. Can you comment a little bit more about that? Yeah. I know after that it says instead of paper currency, actual gold coins should be used for the exchange. But it says still, I wanted a little more clarification on why bad money drives away good money. What is, the point there he's making here? Hare Krishna.
Interesting. Do you have any thoughts, Prabhu, before I share anything? Do you have any? If you have a thought on this, please share, and then
You're on mute.
The only thing that came to mind was if you put good money as the gold coins themselves and bad money as the paper money, then since they are not set up in such a way that the paper money is actually worth the gold that is actually stored, then it is the paper money is actually not genuine in terms of the weight that it's supposedly carrying. So that's one thought that I understand. Still, bad money driving away good money, would it mean then that the economy itself is in shambles because of the whole falsity behind the paper currency? Is that something along those lines? That's the only way I could just think to connect.
Yeah. When I read that, I kind of saw it as Srila Prabhupada just further exposing that we've chosen artificial standard over the real standard, and we've made this kind of bad money or paper currency, and as you said, doesn't add up to the value of the precious metal that it's supposed to represent. But we've made that to the point where it's more convenient. It's more convenient to exchange. It's more convenient to manage. and therefore it's just a false representation. So it's driven away the good money. We've been convinced by the controllers of the system that this system is a better way of managing resources, and we just go along with it. we just accept it. So this bad money has driven away the actual value to the point where people don't even think about it. People don't even think about when they just say, I have $4,000. They don't even know what that means. They just know there are certain things out there that are worth $4,000 that I'm allowed to, go like this and say, tap. Okay, now I can at least go and buy something that says $4,000 on it. But that's the only thing that they kind of see. They don't actually see what the value of that is.
Can we expand it and say that bad money drives away good money means falsity is driving away genuineness then, financially? Falsity is driving away genuineness. Because if we're trading in gold coins, like Srila Prabhupada says, we'll see money for what it is. But we're not.
Right.
So it's like falsity has now become the norm, and genuineness is taking a back seat, literally. Somewhere in the bank, someplace, there's not enough the gold to represent, and here we go. Okay.
Right, there's more paper. If you add up all the value of all the paper that's written, it doesn't add up to all the value of the metal that's sitting in there. And that's where.
No.
But why would they do that? Why would they do that? Because they want you to continue to spend, to make you believe that you have more than actually exists. And that's because Srila Prabhupada uses another term, which I didn't touch on, but I when I read it, I wanted to mention it, but I forgot. It's a very interesting way of using the word prostitution, because we think of usually prostitution as a person sells their body to another person for enjoyment, usually sexual enjoyment. In this case, he says the prostitution of the state economy. So we're actually selling or falsifying the service of that which is real, of what's actually there, the prostitution of gold, to something that is really not. So it's the exploitation of the genuine thing for the enjoyment of the general people. Where they think that they're just manipulating and enjoying, and we'll just print more or just print more paper, So at a certain point, and I don't understand at what point that will break. Like I said, I don't understand the economics to that degree, but anything that's based on a false premise will eventually get exposed, because the lie can only go on but for so long. So does that happen in our lifetime? Does it happen in the lifetime, the next lifetime, or the lifetime after that? 6 generations, 8 generations. Eventually it'll get to the point where, the paper won't mean anything anymore. And you've seen some economies where, around the world, where inflation has risen to be so high, and all it takes is the people that are in control of the money to make that decision. As soon as they make that decision and say, you know what, this paper actually doesn't mean anything anymore. You actually, instead of buying that with $100, now you need $400. They stop printing that money, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're in a very desperate situation. And when that happens, you'll really see chaos. Right? People will no longer be able to spend, buy, do the things. They will no longer be able to afford their houses, afford their apartments, afford, buying basic necessities. Box of cereal now will cost, $30, where it used to cost, $3. and people won't be able to, to live anymore. And then what will happen? There'll be mass hysteria. So we live in this whole system is very fragile, as you can see.
Yeah, I also thought of prostitution as plundering. Another way to look at it as plundering. That's what came to mind first thing, the prostitution of gold. Well, that plundering in terms of the fact that the nations with more power try to get as much to their side as possible, and the nations without much power have very little of the gold also. And it's a very complicated situation now. The complication that's brought about by the so-called wealthy countries or the advanced countries, and then this whole idea of gold now is even changed into some countries forcing other countries to buy oil at their currency, which is throwing in another another monkey wrench into this whole situation. Now it's not even just gold only. Now it's even oil, and oil producing countries have been forced to take one particular country's currency and say, okay, well, that's what you have to use to buy my oil. And so then you have to depend on how that particular country is manipulating the amount of gold and how much their money is worth and so on. Yeah, it's a big mess. Boy, it's only 5,000 years in the Kali Yuga. We're already doing this stuff this way. Hare Krishna. This is just a comment. This not a question, just a comment.
If it further explains that the more we get entangled in this material world, the more we'll get manipulated. And to think that we have some control, we may find ourselves being proud of the money that we have. Maybe somebody, I got, $500,000 in the bank, or somebody says I have 300,000 or 100,000. We may feel very proud about that. We have to realize that we're not in control of that. That can be manipulated, and there are governments that do manipulate these currencies. It reminds us as devotees that we really have to focus on the real value of life and not get caught up in all of this, because it's really a network that's going to entangle us.
It's already entangling. It's the whole basis. And of course, there are laws, tax laws that are changed every year. And then the politics is also part of it. But it's a huge mess right now. It's a huge, 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 huge mess. Hare Krishna.
If you try to figure it out, you'll be confused. If you try to read the tax code and understand, and it's not simple for the simple.
Good thing we have our bead bags and we have the mantra, the chant. That we can see through and see forward by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga.
The one thing, I hardly ever talk about, especially in like these forums, this is not an endorsement or a non-endorsement of this particular person, or the ex-president, Donald Trump. But the one thing he did, which I didn't like, but he exposed to the world the way the government worked. He had gotten on stage, and I'll never forget this, and he was accused. So Hillary Clinton had told him, he says, she said, "You don't pay your taxes." And he says, "That's right, I don't pay my taxes, and that's what makes me smart." And it went to the whole world, the whole world just, heard, the person who's going to become the leader of America say, "I don't pay my taxes, and that's what makes me smart." And she says, "Well, we're going to bring you down because of that." And he says, "No, you won't. And I'll tell you why. Because the same people who are funding your campaign are the same people who are just like me, not paying their taxes. So you won't do anything to me. And it just showed you, it showed the common people that there's another group of people that are playing the system and are playing the game at a wholly different level that no one knew about before. You may have heard about it, you didn't believe it, but here you have the person so so direct and didn't care and says, I'll let you know what's going on and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. Meanwhile, the common folk who are just struggling, you know, they just go ahead and they just continue with their lives. You know, they have no other choice. Like you said, Pariksha Prabhu, it's a good thing we have our bead bags. We have our, you know, we have our direction in life. So we don't have to get caught, we don't have to get caught up in this.
We're out of here.
You know what always helps me, Dronacharya, is when, and I never liked politics since I was a kid. It just never sat well with me. But what was very comforting to me is after, joining the movement, becoming a devotee, the first time I heard, and I always tell this to Pariksha, the first time I heard Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj telling Prabhupada at that time, Abhay Charan, politicians may change, but politics still remain. I dwell on that to just relieve my brain cells from this politics crap out there, because it is not going to change. Whoever we choose, whoever we vote for, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj already said, who they can spend millions of dollars on their campaigns, but what's the guarantee? So, it will remain.
Yeah.
It will remain no matter what. And this was, so I always take shelter of that, to know that no matter who is leading the country, the world, don't expect golden honey. That's very, just try to get out of this dungeon,
Absolutely.
Like try to get out of the dungeon. Like and try to at least, by the mercy of the spiritual master, get out, because it's just not going to get any better.
Yeah. I remember sitting in a class that I attended also was a workshop for salespeople, and the person that was moderating it, officiating it, and teaching it actually talked about, yes, you put money for taxes aside, you put money aside for taxes, but actually I tell you, it depends on how you go about it. But the time comes where you have to pay your taxes. And that's the time when you die. You pay your taxes when you die. He put it that way, which means it's indirectly of saying you don't ever pay your taxes. So he says, yeah, you can put money aside, but he was just kind of hinting that there's ways to go about it without paying taxes. And you know that, then you just go on till you die without paying any taxes, basically. But he said it in a funny way, so people started laughing about it.
Yeah,
the
corruption.
Know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Kali lives there, all right.
Yeah, so we can see exactly, where Kali, this is Kali has manipulated this situation. And that's where Kali is residing.
Yep, Kali's sitting over there, playing with our lives.
In his infinite wisdom, he says, Kali, and it's in the purport. Gold standard is Kali.
Yeah.
The gold standard we've made in Kali, or the people that control us have made. That's the standard. Yeah.
There's a comment here from Dear Krishna saying, Hare Krishna, one of the reasons they make economic financial system complex is so that people can get trapped into it and don't have the time and way out to think about something better and real beneficial. So true. They trap us. They just tie us down, and we cannot think of how to get out and make a better life. Yeah, and it's so true. It's so true. Amazing. Thank you, dear Krishna. Absolutely. Such a good point. Amazing. Any other points from devotees? It's really interesting, Dronacharya, that Srila Prabhupada used the word prostitution in a completely different sense that, for me, I have never heard before. never heard, because he is relating it to, cheating, money, gold, economy. I've never heard Prabhupada use this term prostitution in that sense. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, whoa, it's really gross. It's like really bad. I mean, if he's going to use that word in terms of economy and gold and money and currency and all that, it's really messed up. It's really complete exploitation. Absolutely. Amazing. Amazing. Wow. Completely. Thank you. Any other points from devotees before we end the class? Any questions, any comments, any takeaways? Please do jump right in before we end the class. And if there isn't, we thank you all so much for joining us. And we hope that we are really, really seeing that we live in a crazy world and a world full of exploitation and as Prabhupada says, prostitution of the economy. Amazing words, strong words actually. And that, as Prikshit and Dronacharya was saying, thank God we have our weed bags with us to get out of this dungeon. So we should, that's why I think it's so important to read and hear Bhagavatam, because it's going to help us to really increase our interest and desire and commitment to do everything it takes to get out and go back to the Lord. So please do join us. And thank you, Dronacharya, for such a wonderful class, even though I know you got back so late from the mantra retreat and still you did it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Really, really do.
Pleasure. I look forward to being with all the devotees here in Harrisburg.
I really enjoy your class all the time, Dronacharya. And we thank all the
Gurudev.
devotees for joining us. Vancho Krauplibhyascha, Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day, devotees. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drona. Nice class.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you for your, for sharing.
Transmission, Guru's
That helped a lot.
mercy.
It was nice. I enjoyed it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.